Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we welcome in a guest who's coming in for the first time to talk about the most delicate situation I can talk about.
Yes, we refer to him as our doctor to the littlest patient. Dr. Harold Burkhart deals with heart problems in our smallest patients, the infants, and he's at Children's Hospital in Oklahoma City, just joined Children's this year from the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. We have been on his trail for the last 2 or 3 months to try to entice him to come on the show, and we finally got him worn down enough that he was willing to come visit with us. We're thrilled to have him. He's going to be talking about things that I don't think our viewers have thought much about, perhaps, unless they've had that kind of problem.
He's a pediatric cardiac surgeon.
Yeah. He operates on the hearts of the littlest. And we're going to talk about how he does that and what rewards that brings and what tension that brings as well.
It's all coming up today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
One of the reasons why I moved to Rockaway is because it's such a diverse culture and different ethnicities. And my camera has opened some doors to really meet people that I probably wouldn't have gotten to meet without it. I'm Beth Perkins, I'm a professional photographer, and I'm Chickasaw. It came in as like a mini tidal wave. Everything sustainable had just disappeared in one swoop, and I just underestimated this power, and I realized really how little we are in this whole scheme of things and how quickly things can go bad. My community is still rebuilding, and for them to just show up out of the blue and just start clearing out my house was, I'm not one that likes to ask for help. So for someone to come and do that for me it was really touching and humbling. I've thought about the history of the Chickasaws and what they went through as far as relocating and losing their homes and having to rebuild and to thrive in the end after all of that is just a true testament to the Chickasaw strength. And I try and draw from that and remember that that's a part of who I am.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofenation.com.
People have been talking about energy independence for a long time. It's always been popular, but today it's possible.
We have an enormous supply of oil and gas in the United States, much more than we thought just a few years ago.
New technology, massive new discoveries, largely made by Oklahoma companies. It literally changes everything.
And Oklahoma is leading the charge. Go watch this video to see why. Energy independence starts with us.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we are really thrilled, as I indicated in the opening segment, to have Dr. Harold Burkhart join us. He is a professor of surgery at the OU College of Medicine. He did his undergraduate work at the University of Tennessee, did some graduate work at the University of Indiana, did some additional graduate work at Toronto, was at the Mayo Clinic previously before coming to Oklahoma. He is board certified in surgery and in thoracic surgery. He is the director of pediatric cardiovascular surgery at Children's Hospital. He has been in practice administering to the smallest patients that there are in very, very delicate ways, and the article about him coming to Oklahoma, joining Children's Hospital is what attracted us to ask him to come join us. Dr. Burkhart, thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Tell us about your training, your undergraduate work on up.
Well, I went to college at the University of Tennessee and then medical school in East Tennessee as well. And after that, I did 6 years of training at Indiana University in general surgery, because you had to be boarded in general surgery before you could do heart surgery. And then I did 3 more years at Mayo Clinic as a cardiothoracic surgeon for training. and got boarded in cardiothoracic surgery. And then I did an additional year in pediatric heart surgery at Toronto Hospital for Sick Kids, which at the time was the largest center for pediatric heart surgery in North America. And I got my boards in that as well after leaving Mayo Clinic.
The recruitment of you to Oklahoma, what were they looking for? Did they let you know exactly what they were hoping you could fill?
Yes, they were very specific about it.
They wanted the Burkhart.
I happened to fit what they wanted, which was fortunate, but they were very specific what they wanted. And I remember in the outline of the job description, Oklahoma, if you think about the university in pediatric heart surgery, they had some heavy hitters in pediatric heart surgery here. Dr. Rainey Williams, one of the pioneers in cardiac surgery and pediatric heart surgery. Dr. Ron Elkins, very well known throughout the country and internationally. And I think that they hadn't had, and I don't compare myself to those two, but they had lost some of that cardiac support over the past several years, to where 150, 200 children were going to Texas and Arkansas and Missouri to get heart surgery. And so they were very specific. They wanted somebody who could operate on children and babies and newborns and could get good results, and we could offer the highest level of care and keep the babies here in the state. It was very clear that that's what they wanted. And it wasn't just the CEO of the hospital or the head of the department of surgery. It was everybody from the nurses in the operating room that I met, the nurse out on the floor, to the other doctors. They all they were missing that one piece of the puzzle, and they were trying to recruit the person for that.
How have you found Oklahoma? I know your background was growing up in Tennessee. Oklahoma's not all that different from Tennessee. How have you adjusted to Oklahoma?
Well, it's been fantastic. I moved down here in December, so I missed the Minnesota winter, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, the people of Oklahoma have been incredible. I didn't know what to think about, to be honest, because I'd never been to Oklahoma. And I remember looking up a video that the Chamber of Commerce puts out. I'll put in a plug for the Chamber of Commerce, because they have a 9-minute video that anytime I've had a few people that are coming here to interview, I forward that video, because it tells about all the past accomplishments of Oklahoma City this past 10 or 15 years. And I was like, it blew my mind. And my wife had grown up in Indianapolis, and it's very similar in some ways, but a smaller population. But with the sports teams, the college being nearby, and all the restaurants and everything else. So from a city standpoint, it's been phenomenal. And the people are nice here. I haven't had issues with anybody. They're all very nice and welcoming and helpful. So we've been very pleasantly surprised. I think from the hospital and the university standpoint, it's been fantastic as well. Everybody's been supportive. They've done what they said they were going to do, which is support building a program for kids here. So I have no complaints with either one of them. I've been very happy with it.
As a heart surgeon, what drew you to pediatrics?
I went to med school to be a pediatrician, but I liked surgery a lot. And so on the way through training, I ultimately combined the two and said, well, I'll do pediatric heart surgery. I did, you do training, and I was there for 3 years at Mayo doing cardiac surgery training. And I like doing valve repairs and valve replacements and taking care of adults with cardiac surgery. But the challenges and the extra training and the victories mean a heck of a lot more to me as a surgeon in the pediatric realm. And you got a whole group of people, including the surgeon, but intensivists, critical care doctors, perfusionists, nurses, all surrounding this one little baby, trying to figure out how to make this baby's heart work in the right way so that that baby's going to survive and get a good outcome. And so the highs are really there. It's a very satisfying job. It's one of the last surgical specialties where there truly is an art to it. You know what I mean? Every heart looks different when we open up, and then we're figuring out, well, we got to make a patch go here to move blood here, and to move blood here, and we got to do this to the valve. And it's stressful, but it's good when it's good, and fortunately, it's good 99% of the time.
How you've been here now about 6 months, or not quite. How have you found, and pardon me for asking the question this way, how have you found the state of health of Oklahoma infants as compared to what you're used to seeing? Are kids basically as healthy as the ones you're used to seeing, or are there significant differences?
Oh no, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, they have got the state of Oklahoma has a lot of heavy hitters in the world of pediatrics. I mean, that hospital. I mean, it's not like I came there and changed the course of that hospital. They have phenomenal physicians were ready and nursing staff were ready. They were just missing my little part to the whole thing. But I think the kids at this children's hospital get phenomenal care, and I don't think they're behind in any way at all.
What are the biggest differences between just dealing with the size of the heart? Because of an infant's heart is going to be so much smaller than an adult's. What extra problems does that create for the surgeon?
Well, just because of the size of it, in some adults, if you can't repair a valve, which sometimes can be difficult, well, you can just get one off the shelf and replace it, right? Well, they don't have that for babies because they're too small and the valves are too small. So there's a bit of stressor and push you really got to make it fix and not leak so that this baby can get off the operating room table and their heart can support their body. And then of course, we operate on babies that are sometimes 500 grams that are this big, and I wear loops that will magnify 4 times that I'm looking through. So maybe my field of vision, there's instruments all around me, but all I really see is right there in the middle. And that, the needles for the suture, they have to be very small needles, and so you have to order special needles for that. We've talked earlier about how tissues can be very delicate. Often they'll look like wet tissue paper. So when you're tying, you don't want suture to stick to your gloves because that could tear through. And of course, I think the big difference is often the stakes are higher. You got a newborn baby, and you do have to make things work. So there's pressure with regards to that.
With an adult patient, you can ask them what's wrong. You can ask them how they feel. You can ask them what symptoms they're having. You obviously can't do that for most of the very, very young. How do you determine what in the world is going on if that child can't communicate with you at all?
Well, they have come a long way with a lot of that, and the cardiologists are very good and actually general practitioner pediatricians actually are very good, because there are certain symptoms they look for children, like maybe they get sweaty when they're eating, right? So that's a symptom of heart failure without an adult telling me, I get short of breath when I walk to the mailbox. And not growing, so failure to thrive because their heart is having to work 3 times that of a normal heart. Those are all things that they look for, and then they listen for murmurs and that sort of thing. And then they can do an echo, an ultrasound of the heart, which will show you, is the heart dilated, is the valve leaking a lot? If the heart's dilated, it's making you think, well, the heart's working a heck of a lot harder than a normal heart, and this child's not gaining weight, and all these symptoms go to make you think that there's something wrong with the heart and something that needs to be fixed.
Different way to communicate.
Exactly, exactly.
Harold Burkhart is a pediatric cardiac surgeon at Children's Hospital. We'll have more after this break.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
We're back on The Verdict. We're visiting with Dr. Harold Burkhart of Children's Hospital. He's a pediatric surgeon.
Doctor, let me ask you about, is the physical appearance of an infant's heart dramatically different than an adult heart? I mean, has it not developed in certain ways, and does that necessitate a difference in your training to be able to deal with that?
Well, for sure about how it looks in a lot of these children, they'll have congenital anomalies. So they'll have various holes in their heart or one pumping chamber rather than two, and veins and arteries connected to the wrong pumping chamber. So it does necessitate extra training, and that's why I had to go up to Toronto, and half of my Mayo training was just in children as well. But so from an anatomy standpoint, for sure there are tons of differences than what we're dealing with standard heart, valve, and coronary surgery in adults. And then definitely the tissue can be a problem, because in adults' hearts, often the tissue, when you're putting sutures in the valve or in the heart itself, the tissue is pretty tough usually, and it can hold the stitches. But a newborn baby, it's almost like putting a very, very fine fishing line into raw hamburger. You want to put the needle and tie the knot down to where it just catches the tissue. But if you tie it down too tight, it'll just cut right through it. So you do have to be a lot more light-handed, if you will, in a lot of the surgeries.
Have you had any experience with conjoined twins?
Have had experience just with chest reconstruction, where the kids were born with their sternum face to face and they were attached, but where they were separated and reconstructed each of the sternums, but not actually where the heart is shared, because I don't think that's typically something that can be done surgically.
Generally, what's the success rate on conjoined twins today?
I think in general, overall, it's quite good because of all the imaging they do, right? They do all these three-dimensional CTs, and they have 40 people involved, various surgeons and medical doctors, and it's all about planning. So I think if they don't share a critical organ, like a brain or a heart, the results can be quite good.
What kind of recovery do you see, recovery time and progress do you see in your youngest patients after you've performed surgery? When are they kind of ready to go home, if they are?
Well, I think it depends on what they had done, but in a baby that's 3 months old that has a hole in the heart repaired, it's incredible how well they do. They typically, have the breathing tube out that day or the next morning, and they're eating and often home within 5 to 7 days. If you have a newborn baby and you do heart surgery, they're often in the hospital for maybe 2 to 3 weeks because they haven't ever eaten. So we can do the heart surgery and they can heal up and their heart can be solid, but they're still going through a lot of training for eating and that sort of thing, and making sure that they're doing the appropriate things before they go home, because we don't want them to go home and have issues. We want to keep them in the hospital till they're ready and then go home. But in general, that's the beauty of pediatrics. They're strong and they rebound quickly and they tolerate operating and operations most of the time. So
what percentage of your surgical load would fall into the category of an emergency, and what category would be a planned surgery?
I think an emergency or urgency is probably about 10%, 90% is non-emergent or planned. But under that 90%, a lot of them, like right now in the NICU, there's 3 babies that are on medications to keep arteries open that shouldn't close, that will, once in the next week, they're already set up for surgical dates, depending on how their heart's developing and stuff. So they're not emergencies, and they're being treated medically in the hospital for their surgery.
This is mid-May, so you may not have had enough time here to have an answer to this, but what do you anticipate being your average patient load in your current position?
Well, I think given the fact that prior to me getting here, they were sending out 150 to 200 children out of the state, and there's 3.5 million people in the state or so, there should be a volume of surgery enough for 2 full-time pediatric heart surgeons at this institution. So my bet is that this year I'll probably do about 300 operations, some of them with the heart-lung machine, some of them without, maybe even a little more than that. But the goal here is to give the highest quality care and the best care so that everybody in this state doesn't have to go elsewhere. They can stay here in the state and get the care.
I can't help but ask this, are there people from other states coming here now because of you?
We've had a few coming here, and we've had a few already call me, and we're working on getting them here. And that's obviously a goal too. If we can, I think we're going to provide outstanding care here, and we're going to get regional as well as national referrals, and that's. But you know, to be honest with you, the biggest thing that attracted me to the job, to moving from Minnesota here is, you know, in Minnesota I tended to operate from people all over the world, and just because of the referral patterns, you know what I mean? And here they needed somebody, and I could make a difference in that community, and we could make a difference for the state here. And so it's great if we get people from outside the state. I really wanted to focus on making sure families didn't have to travel with their other kids to get heart surgery 200, 300 miles away.
Beyond your role of surgeon, you also have a role at the medical school.
I'm a professor of surgery there, and we're going to hopefully get the residency program going here in the next year or so, and so teaching residents and teaching general surgery residents as well, and working with Dr. Payton, who's my current head of the division in posterior, the head of the department. So there's teaching for sure, teaching and nursing, and teaching medical students and residents as well.
Is this classroom work?
Well, sometimes we give lectures, and then sometimes it's in the operating room observing.
And are these trained doctors that are hoping to specialize, or is this more general information they need to have?
No, the medical students are, you know, general information. They need to rotate through these things. The general surgery residents are often people that, well, maybe I want to do cardiac surgery. I want to rotate through them and see what they do. And then ultimately, cardiothoracic surgery residencies will be back back going, and then there'll be cardiac surgeons in training.
Are there other doctors in Oklahoma now that do what you do?
There's not another program that's doing all the neonatal and infant heart surgery, but that's what makes it beautiful. We have a children's hospital smack dab in the center of the state, so you kind of have the, you know, the spokes in the center, and everybody can come here, and we have all the people in place, the cardiologists, the intensivists, infectious, all those people are in place to offer that. So,
how large is your team when you go into surgery? Who's with you?
in the operating room, there's typically 1 or 2 surgical assistants, somebody, CST handing instruments, 2 nurses, 2 people with anesthesia, 2 perfusionists. You know, maybe there's 15 people, it seems, in the room at one time at times.
Is there an average or typical length of time a surgical procedure takes, or are they all different?
Well, they can be different, but I think, fortunately, most operations themselves are about 3 to 4 hours of operating. Now, there's, you know, maybe an hour for anesthesia on the front end and on the back end, but then there's, you know, to be honest, there's some infants and neonates that, you know, I've operated before for 10 or 12 hours on somebody just because it was so much needed to be done and stuff. But fortunately, most of them are about 3 to 4 hours.
What kind of a physical drain does that put on you? Are you just absolutely exhausted after one of these lengthy operations?
Sometimes I will be after it, but it's remarkable because during it, I think you're so focused, and then you'll look up at the clock and 3 hours would have gone by, and because, you know, the heart stopped, you're kind of on the timer, you know what I mean? You don't want to lollygag, you want to keep moving forward, and so it doesn't seem to bother me during the case, but realistically, every now and then I'm pretty tired at night.
Bet.
And are you the doctor that deals with the parents and grandparents of the child? It explains what procedures took place?
Yes, I always talk to them before and after the operation, and then they're on the service that includes the intensivist, and they're talking to the families too as they're recovering, as well as the pediatric cardiologist. So there's a lot of people giving a lot of information to the families to make sure that they're not in the dark about what's going on. But I make sure I tell them what we did too. I want them to know what we're dealing with.
And typically following surgery, will you be the doctor they go back to a month later or 6 months later, or will that be someone else that they see for continued care?
Often what I do is they'll see their cardiologist at about a week and then at a month. And some of them will see me at a month. Sometimes if they're far away, they'll say their cardiologist or their doctor will say they're doing great, and they don't need to make a trip just to see me to tell me you know what I mean, I'm doing great. I have 3 children. I know how hard that can be. So often, though, it's the cardiologists that take over and follow them long term and make sure that their valves are working and their heart's working the way it should.
Dr. Burkhart, thank you for coming on The Verdict. It's been
we
very
really
informative
appreciate
show.
it. It's been a fast show.
Appreciate your work at Children's
It's been
Hospital.
a pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming to Oklahoma.
Harold Burkhart is a pediatric cardiac surgeon at Children's Hospital. Kent and I'll be back with the final word right after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids gotta know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
We are back on The Verdict set, wrapping up a show of Dr. Harold Burkhart of Children's Hospital, a pediatric cardiac surgeon. What a fascinating line of work.
Well, it's bound to be very stressful, very time-consuming, and the attention to detail, of course, has to be perfect, and we're really pleased that he, as busy as he is, he'd come here and do this show for us and let our viewers know what kind of resource we have in Oklahoma.
I sense stress just talking about this subject.
Me too.
I mean, I can't imagine, dealing with all of those tense situations on a daily basis. But he obviously knows how to do it. He is something else. We have website information about Dr. Burkhart at oumedicine.com. That's his website for further information. oumedicine.com. And we have a website. You can go on our website and talk about a guest or give us a suggestion for a topic you'd like to see us discuss on a future show. That website is theverdict.tv. That's going to do it. We'll see you next week.